Hello, it's Dawn Michelle and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do my monthly reflections video, my November monthly reflections video, talking about mostly just the decks that I worked with in November of 2023, and we'll take a little peek at my tarot journal here. This month has been so busy, it has flown by. I have so much stuff that I'm getting ready and prepping for next year. There's like a huge change coming in my membership, which is going to be so much fun, but it means that like my tarot practice pretty much, with the rare exception of a few little readings here and there, was really just focused on my monthly medicine practice. So that's primarily what we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to show you the decks that I worked with, and then we'll take a little flip through this journal. But I have this out because this does have my list of decks that I worked with throughout the month. Okay, so let's jump into the decks that I worked with for the November monthly medicine. Our theme was shenanigans, and it was fun because it was really just a let's just grab some decks and have a play. I wrote limericks for spread prompts instead of like the traditional spread prompts, so that was really fun. And each week I worked with a different pairing, so we pulled daily cards, and then we had a reading and then a reflection, and I used a variety of different decks for that. I started with I had intentions of having this like full on fun, vintagey, collagey theme going on. I had a little bit of a detour in the middle toward the end of the month, but you'll see why when I get to that deck. So let's start with our first week, and I used the Zombie Oracle and the Zombie Tarot. I'm pretty sure I've talked about both of these decks like in detail on my channel. They're both favorites. The Zombie Oracle is a indie produced deck by Orshi, our very own Orshi, and it is a fantastic little oracle deck. It has the best keywords. I love working with this deck. I think I've talked about it many, many times, but it was a really great one to work with that first part of November, because we were just coming out of, you know, spooky season, and I felt like I just wasn't quite ready to let that go. So I pulled this one in for my daily card pulls, and it was actually pretty cool. I got some really great cards for it, and then I ended up using my beloved Zombie Tarot for my readings and just random other pulls that I did throughout that week. I don't know how many times I can talk about how much I love this deck, because I feel like I say the same thing every time. It's so fun. It's cheeky. It's got like the best sense of humor, but it's also like a really fantastic, solid reader. When I first got this deck, I thought it was just going to be kind of like a, you know, for fun sort of collector, not really a serious reader type of thing. But actually I use this deck a lot, and it works really, really well for a lot of different type of readings. It's fantastic for when I want to kind of like get out of my own headspace about something and kind of look at things through a different perspective, because every card in this deck makes me giggle in some way, shape, or form, but like there's a legit real message in the card too, and I absolutely love that. So while aesthetically speaking, these two decks don't really, like, they're not existing in the same space. The Zombie Oracle is much more modern. The Zombie Tarot has that sort of vintagey, you know, 1950s Americana feel to it, but the messages together are pretty spot on. Like here we have denial between the 10 of hazards and the 6 of hazards. Like, yeah, you're really denying all the work that actually needs to get done and the amount of responsibility that you really have. I love it. This one is a great one for creating spread positions too, and I really enjoy working with it in that way. So like pulling 3 or 4 cards to give me like that is the position. So new beginnings would be the position, and then I would pull a tarot card to see what lies in that position. And that's such a fantastic way to work with this deck too. It's another one that I think works really well outside of its seasonal energy. Sometimes I know that I tend to like pigeonhole decks into like it belongs in this particular season and I can't use it any other time. But actually this little oracle is really great any time of the year, because it does have that little bit more of a modern kind of aesthetic to it. I find that it actually does pair really well with a lot of different things. I think it's kind of that grungy nature that it has, that it's like, it's modern, but like it's not, I don't know. It's a thing, right? It's a mood, and I love that about it. Also, the keywords, as I mentioned, are absolutely phenomenal. There's some really interesting, very thought-provoking cards in this deck. And I think they lend themselves really well to working with the zombie tarot because, again, the zombie tarot also kind of looks at things in a different perspective. There's some unique ways to explore each of the cards when we're looking at, you know, working with these two decks together. So here we have like history repeating itself, and we have the Tower and the Ten of Cups. I mean, that's just kind of perfect. That's just kind of perfect. Yeah, so the first week of November, I was like, I am not quite ready to let go of spooky season. And I hadn't really had a chance to work too much with these two decks throughout October. So I definitely wanted to pull them out and at least have a little bit of time with them this year. And this was a fantastic way to do it. So I started my month with the Zombie Tarot and the Zombie Oracle. So our next week was our skedaddle week. And for this particular week, I used my Housewives Tarot with the Finders Keepers Pocket Oracle, which is of course the deck that I made. I don't know why it didn't occur to me to actually use my own deck, but it was thanks to Marlena that I did because she was working with it and I was like, oh, that's kind of perfect. So this is the pocket edition because I was actually out of town some of this particular week and I had taken this one with me. I had taken also my pocket Centennial Rider-Waite-Smith, and I did use that for readings on occasion, but I did not use it for monthly medicine, and it kind of like lives in my bedroom most of the time, so I didn't pull it back out here. But that one and the Finders Keeper went on vacation with me, and actually they pair together really well. So let me talk real quick about the Housewives Tarot because, again, this is another deck that is a long time favorite in my collection. This was like the third deck I think I ever purchased for myself way back when. And like I love everything about it. It's, again, similar to the Zombie Tarot, which those two decks like pair beautifully together. It has that same sort of cheeky sense of humor. I love the interpretations of the tarot through this deck. And also, like, it's just a deck that makes me happy. Like, every time I pull it out, it makes me happy. And even when I get rough cards, it still makes me happy. And I really fully enjoy working with this, but it kind of has that energy of that fun, playful energy that we were working with throughout the month of November. And so I thought it fit really well. I was actually surprised. It worked pretty well with the Finders Keepers. Again, this is the pocket edition. I do have a larger edition as well, but I was primarily using this one. I used it for daily card pulls, and then I used it throughout the week. You know, this is a deck I made, so like I use it a lot, actually. Not as much as my Sacred Threads, but I do use this one quite a bit. And there is quite a bit of a vintagey feel to a lot of the cards in this deck. This is a completely like magpie hodgepodge deck. I do have another edition in the works. It was all created by hand, so it's handmade collage that I then, you know, turned into a deck. And I think because it kind of has that sort of eclectic mix of things, it actually pairs really well with quite a few different decks. So I was really excited to kind of discover that as I was working with this together. And I've worked with the Finders Keepers with a few other decks. Sometimes, you know, some of the images are very modern looking, but I don't feel that they really sit too far outside of the scope, particularly when we're looking at, you know, messages. So we have Inner Critic with the Six of Wands and Strength. I think that's really cool. Connect with the World and the Three of Pentacles. This is a deck sometimes with the Finders Keepers. Like, I'll be honest, sometimes I take this and I will pull out the cards that really sit in alignment with the energy of the deck that I'm working with. So like maybe not that one, but like maybe this one. And you can see like some of them have a vintagey kind of feel, like a lot of them do. Maybe not that one. Like, so I could go through, and sometimes I do pull out like just the cards that sort of sit in alignment with the energy of the deck that I'm working with. And sometimes that's how I work with this as well. I also use it to like determine which deck that I'm gonna use. So when I get like deck paralysis and I don't know which tarot deck to choose, I'll pull out the Finders Keepers. A deck's similar to that, but I've used the Finders Keepers quite a bit for it, where I'm like, I'm gonna pull a card from this and then see what deck in my collection feels like it resonates with that energy. So, that's also a fun way that I like to work with it. But it does work really well with the Housewives overall because a lot of the collage work that I did in the Finders Keepers is pretty vintagey. Here we have Death with the Seven of Pentacles and the Lovers. That's fantastic. Find Yourself with the Emperor and the Ten of Swords. Love it. I didn't work with these together a ton. Like, I did primarily use the Housewives on its own for readings, and then the Finders Keepers for daily card pulls was primarily how I worked with them, but I did pair them together a little bit here and there. So yeah, it's a fun one. I love working with these decks together. This one is a great one. Like, come what may between the Nine of Wands and the Chariot. I love that. With my little D20 on there. DK with the Ace of Swords and the King of Swords. So I think overall it works pretty well. But again, you know, I made the deck, so of course I'm gonna think it works well, right? So our next week was the Cattywampus week, and I was actually really excited about the two decks that I was working with for that week, and it is the Earthbound Oracle and the Triomphe della Luna Illustrated. So these two decks together, okay, so I've talked about and shown the Triomphe. I've gone through a whole mood, a whole thing with this deck. I have really come around to it, but like, it's a time and a place type of a thing for me. It's kind of a mood. I do really like its mood. Again, like the zombies, like the housewives, it's got a very cheeky energy to it. When the first time I got it, the first time I opened it, I was just not in the right headspace for a deck like this. So, you know, I put it away. It went in and out of purgatory. I kept it because I do really, really like the illustrations. I have bought one of the Marseille decks as well now at this point that I'm looking forward to playing with. But this one, I just had to be in the right mindset, I guess, time and place, right? And then, so I showed this again in another video, and I was having trouble pairing it, and somebody had directed me to one of Sandy's videos, Sandy at Exploring Tarot. Like, if you haven't seen her channel, she's amazing. You have to check her out because, like, her videos are like the coziest things in the world. I absolutely love to turn on Sandy's videos and just like curl up with like a cup of hot cocoa. And like, every time I'm like, oh, Tucker and I curled up with a hot cocoa. Okay, not Tucker, but just me. We curled up with a hot cocoa and like watched her video because like that is just totally the vibe of Sandy's channel, and I am absolutely here for it. Anyway, so I went and looked up that video. And she was pairing the Triomphe with the little Earthbound Oracle, which, like, I've had this deck for years. It is one of those tried and true Oracle decks. I love it. It was, like, I think one of my first little pocket Oracles. And it's an amazing deck. That's great keywords. Like, I know we all talk about this deck. We all know and love it. But it does pair really beautifully with the Triomphe. Like, it just sits really well in this world. And I'm noticing that like the first 3 weeks I used all pocket oracles with standard size tarot, which was kind of funny. But anyway, the Earthbound Oracle just sits so beautifully in this world. I did end up also buying the Mildred Payne little pocket Oracle thing deck as well, but I have not actually paired it with this. I haven't worked with it yet, but I do have it now. So here we have cycles with the 10 of coins and the Wheel of Fortune. I mean, if that's not cyclical energy, I don't know what is. Permanence between our two fives, the 5 of Swords and the 5 of Cups. That's really cool. Like, what is permanent and what isn't? I think that's really, really cool. There's just something about the way that these two decks pair together that it really does. I think the Earthbound Oracle really does give me like a very succinct focal point, and I love that. That's one of the things that I use my oracles for anyway, is to really give me that really solid focus for a reading. Sometimes I use it for spread positions, sometimes I use it to expand upon readings and things like that, but like primarily my oracle decks serve as a focal point. This is what my reading is about. This is the main message, and the tarot really fleshes that out to that much deeper level, deeper than I feel that most oracle decks can go to. Like, oracle for me is a little bit more on the surface level. Like, the focus is achievement, that's great, but where are we looking for that? Where is that energy showing up? We have the 10 of Swords and the 4 of Cups. So that's really like, that's where the depth comes from. That's where the layer comes from, is in tarot. But sometimes when I put tarot on the table, if I don't have a specific question in mind, I don't really know exactly what the theme or the context or the purpose of the reading is. And so having the oracle as the focus really cements that for me. It tells me this particular pairing, would be about earth. It would be about rooting down into that earth energy. And we have the 5 of coins and the 3 of coins. Really interesting. So again, these two together just are amazing. I think this, and then maybe even layering in the Mildred Payne, would be really cool. I might try that at some point. But like I said, I've really just been playing with these two because I've been trying to get to know the Triomphe and kind of find my way with it, which I think I have. Like, I think we found our space you know, our place together. I think it's found its place in my collection. I'm glad I held on to it and didn't like sort of, I'll just be honest, like overreact to my first impression, which that was a member video, and it's pretty funny because I was like, no, just absolutely not. This is not for me. Like, I hate everything about this. And it's end up being like, it's like a 10 things I hate about you thing, right? Where it's like, I hate all these things about you, but like, I really, really do kind of love this deck. And I'm being really dramatic here. I do not hate anything about the Trionfi della Luna. I'm not real fond of the like fire out the butt card, but like, it's fine. It's fine. I get it. Sense of humor, right? Sense of humor is important in the world. But anyway, I really do like this. It just really was a deck that was like time and place for me, right? Just really sitting with this unique kind of energy and just letting it kind of unfold the way it's meant to. I think that was really a great experience. And I did end up like getting into it throughout the month as well, because I was just kind of like a little bit fascinated with it. Okay, clear up until the next deck that showed up, then that just totally took over my world. But this deck, this combo too, was just amazing. Self with the Knight of Swords and the Hierophant. Love it. Why do my neighbors always want to mow the minute I turn my camera on? Like, it's November. Why y'all mowing? Anyway, the next week was our Abracadabra week, and this was like about bringing a little bit of fun magic in. And I think it was the week before that, maybe, the Tabletop Tarot, which is a deck that I pre-ordered and have been anxiously awaiting, showed up. And I was like, I don't even know what I had planned for that week, but it went by the wayside, and this came out, and I was just like enamored, totally enamored with it. But I paired that also with the Coastal Curiosities Oracle, which is another deck that I really, really love working with. Let's talk about each of these decks. I'm going to talk about the Coastal Curiosities first, because it is a deck, oh, look, the Connect card's on top. It is a deck that I really have enjoyed getting to know. It's, you know, fairly new in my collection. I also have the tarot by this creator, which is amazing, and I love it. But for like this sort of fun, funky, shenanigans sort of month that we were having in the membership, this was such a fantastic deck to integrate into that, because it's so much fun and it's so playful, and it is a little bit like shenanigans on the card, and I love it. And then this arrived, and this is the Tabletop Tarot. Here's the backs. This is an indie deck by a creator who created a deck based on like the D&D world. There are lots of points in case. There are lots of, would you call that pop culture references, like D&D culture references to various campaigns and things like that. It looks like a nod to Critical Role. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I don't know that I've heard that specifically, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Anyway, this deck is kind of amazing, and I've really enjoyed working with it. The thing that I really like, besides this like D&D and like that's my jam too, I think that this is a deck that you don't have to, you know, really be into D&D to work with, which is great because it is very Rider-Waite-Smith. But like for me, it's those nods. It's those nods in the cards that I'm like, I see what you did there. That's awesome. It's amazing. And I love that it brings this, you know, beautiful fantasy world. It again has that D&D sort of energy to it, but I'm sorry. So many of these cards just like make me happy the second I see them. Like that's one of them. I just like, it's just everything. You know, it's one of those decks that like, it's a good mood deck 100%, but actually I've used it for a ton of readings throughout the rest of the month. And like this deck, I keep pulling it out like all the time, keep pulling it out. And it's so amazing. It's such a great reader. It's actually really like loving and supportive. And I really have enjoyed working with it. It's such a fun one. Now that I've like all babbled and gushed over how fantastic this deck is, let's look at them together. So these two decks together, I think actually do work quite well. I'm gonna play with some other pairings with the Tabletop Tarot because I feel like there's like in my quite large now at this point sort of nerdy, geeky inspired collection that I have going on. Like I feel like there's probably something that really is just gonna match this even more spot on, but this was actually a really nice pairing. I love the succinct keywords in the Coastal Curiosities. So we have Cycle with the Hermit and the Five of Swords. I mean, it's just beautiful. And aesthetically, I think they actually do go together pretty well. I was really quite pleased with the way that the keywords really seem to bring out different energies in the tarot. So like beauty between the Two of Wands and the Star. I mean, that's like really, really beautiful. I love it. Sorry, beauty, beautiful. Keywords get stuck in my head. Then stuff like this happens and I'm just like, okay, reward with the Ace of Swords and the Nine of Cups with that reference. It's just like, it's just phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Memory with the Five of Cups and the Knight of Swords. I mean, I don't know. There's just something about it, something about the pairing that just works so well for me. I think that, like I said, aesthetically, I can probably find something that's really, really spot on as well that maybe fits in this D&D world. But honestly, like I really like this one too. Like look at here, compassion with temperance and strength and color. Y'all know how I feel about color. Red wings, red ladybug, red dragon. There's just so much there for me to work with in terms of, you know, what's in the cards beyond just the basic associations that we have. And I really appreciate that. But yeah, the tabletop tarot kind of stole my heart and it has not left my desk since it got here. So it was kind of like I started the month really playing a lot with the Triumphi and then I switched to the tabletop. Ooh, look at this. Unearthed, Page of Pentacles, Six of Cups. Love that. Then I switched to the tabletop and like it hasn't left my desk. I don't think I'm probably even going to put it away yet. I think I'm going to leave it out for even a while longer because I'm just having such a moment with this deck. I'm really, really enjoying it. It's just kind of, it's got a little bit of just everything I love in it, which is amazing. So here we have Balance, Seven of Cups, Queen of Cups. I mean, that's gorgeous, gorgeous. Develop, Queen of Pentacles, Eight of Swords. The illustrations are so beautiful in the tabletop tarot. I really, really like them. They're so clean and clear, and I love that it's not like, it's not super cluttered, and I think that's why it works really well with like a collage style deck, even though I wouldn't consider the Coastal Curiosities a cluttered collage. It's actually a quite clean collage, which I really enjoy. But the imagery in the tabletop tarot is really, really clean too, and so they work really well together in that way. Look at the yellow. See, that's the first thing my eye went to. The yellow pentacles, the yellow flowers, and the yellow sky, the hint of the yellow sky behind the Ten of Swords. That's kind of amazing. I love it. Okay, so yeah, clearly I'm a fan of both of these decks, but like the tabletop tarot is spot on this month, and I'm still gonna keep playing with it. This is fantastic. Look at this depth with the Three of Swords and the Four of Cups. Okay, and so the last few days of the month, this last week, was our hodgepodge week, and I worked with the Pulp Tarot and the Begin Oracle, which was such a fun little combo. So now we're kind of going backwards with Giant Oracle, Smaller Tarot. So the Begin Oracle, I'll talk about it really quick. Like it's quite large. I have edged mine. It's a wonderful indie collage deck. It comes with this like enormous, and not enormous as in like a lot of pages, like enormous as in like physically really big, which kind of just cracks me up every time I get it out. But the guidebook's actually really quite amazing. However, this is another one of those decks where like I really don't need the guidebook to work with it. The imagery and the key word or key phrase that on it is just like spot on perfect. I get, you know, everything that I need out of just working with that. But if I want to dive into it, then I've got that available to me. I thought just this was the perfect like oracle for me for hodgepodge, because it is kind of a hodgepodge of things. Some of it's photos, some of it's hand-drawn. It's there's no like one cohesive theme or anything. It is kind of just a melting pot, a hodgepodge of art. And like I feel like that fit really well with the week and the prompts, and I really enjoyed working with it. I used it for daily card pulls as well as just kind of pulling in a focal point. It's going to be really large, so I'm going to split it. Pulling in a focal point for working with the Pulp Tarot as well. Because in general, when I'm working with decks, the decks that I choose for my monthly medicine each week are generally the decks that I just work with throughout the week for other things as well. So the Pulp Tarot is new to my collection, or newish, as in like I bought it a few months ago and this is the first month I've ever worked with it. I like absolutely love the artwork. I think it's amazing. It sits like right in between. It's like it's like the Housewives and it's like the Zombies, but it's not exactly the same as either one, which I really appreciate. It almost like sits right in between them. And so I love that I have like all these decks that have like a similar vibe, but completely different sort of language in a sense. Or maybe it's like a different accent. We're all speaking the same language, but it's like a different accent. It just, I don't know, it has a little bit of a different perspective, and I really, really enjoyed it. There's a lot of like, obviously movie references in it. It's just like old movie posters, and I'm here for it. It's fantastic. So there goes my neighbors. I am recording, therefore they must be doing yard work. These two together were actually quite a lot of fun because they're kind of both collage-y. However, this has a very specific sort of vintage style, really, you know, movie poster motif going on here. And with the Begin, you kind of just get whatever you get. So it's an interesting combination, but I really quite enjoyed it. I felt like the keywords were actually quite spot on. So we have like transparent between Death and the Eight of Pentacles. That's kind of cool. A lot of times the colors are very compatible across these. There's a lot of these cards that have kind of a vintage style to them as well. They have a lot of vintage imagery in it, so it definitely aesthetically pairs really well. Interesting here that these two cards, and this happens a lot with this particular pairing, where like part of the collage will relate to one card and part of the collage will relate to another, and it's like it becomes the bridge between the two, which is really interesting. So like with this fruit card, so this hands here with the like the pear, I think that's a pear, and it's, you know, very reminiscent of what's going on over here in the Six of Pentacles with the two hands and the coins. But then we also have this big flower that's kind of like all of these little tendrils of it kind of coming down and almost feeling like overwhelming, overshadowing this hand, which I think does kind of relate to this Ten of Wands with carrying that load, right? Carrying that burden. And it's so interesting to me when this happens with this particular little pairing where it's like it picks up elements from both cards and then they're blended together, and like this is what comes out of those two energies. And so I think it's really interesting when that happens. I noticed it quite a few times when I was working with these two decks. Clearly, like it's not every time, but sometimes there's definitely a clear like cohesion between all the cards. I mean, I could even see it a little bit with this one. We have the two figures. I love this keyword of slay too. We have the cheetah, which is like fast moving and fast paced, and then we have this Knight of Wands here with the Dukes of Hazzard card with like the flames on it and stuff. Like I can work with it even when it's not like super obvious, but sometimes it is like it feels like the elements were just pulled like directly out of the card. And then sometimes like it's just really about the keywords. So adapt with the Hierophant and the Devil. I mean, that's kind of cool. Ritual with the Ace of Wands and the Moon. Okay, so again, like here, same thing. I can pick up elements from both of these cards in this Ritual card. We have the Moon, of course, represented here in both cards. And then we have this sort of hand with the offering, hand holding the wand here, and then the hands with the sort of leaf offering. Like, again, do you see what I'm seeing? Where it's like the two elements of the two cards, the two main elements of the cards are coming together in this oracle. And it's just super cool. It's such a really unique experience that I've had working with these two decks together that I don't know that's really happened like that spot on, like that on the nose with so many cards. It's just such a cool experience. And I really did enjoy working with them together. I kind of just grabbed them at, like I knew I wanted to work with the Pulp Tarot, but I kind of just grabbed the Begin as like I just grabbed a random collage oracle, and like that's the one that I ended up grabbing, and it did work perfectly. Like, who's there? The Fool and Justice. I love that. Love it. Okay, let's just do one more. Like here, again, I mean, well, this one says the Sun and the Sun, so obviously they're both gonna have suns, but even with the like Two of Pentacles here, we have this figure who's like holding them down, and then this figure that's like offering them up. It's so cool the way that the imagery kind of wraps itself up into like these three cards all together. I find it really fascinating, and I really, really enjoyed working with it. This is definitely something I'm gonna be diving into even deeper, just to see, you know, what other layers I can pull out of this, because it's such an interesting experience. Okay, so then I just have like a couple of other random decks that I did some work with. I mean, I'm always like just pulling decks at random for various things throughout the month anyway, but sometimes there's decks that I kind of like get into a little bit of deeper work with, or maybe just work with them a little bit more, so more than just, you know, a reading here or there. And there are two decks this month that besides the Tabletop Tarot, like y'all, that thing arrived and I was just done. Everything else was just set by the wayside. But prior to that, I had a really amazing time working with the Cosmo Beings Tarot. And this is really interesting because this is a deck that I've talked about before. I think it was, I mentioned it in a VR. I think it was a VR to Lisa and Peggy. Here's the backs. My only complaint with this deck is that it's too big for me. There's a travel size of the other deck by this creator, the Mons Tarot. There's a travel size of that, and I really, really hope that this comes out in a travel size because this is just almost too big for me to deal with. Do y'all remember that Deal Breaker decks video I did? Size. Still have it, but it's a deal breaker. But in this deck, I've learned to make an exception for it. So I've gone on a whole journey with this deck. When I first got it, I was like, I don't know. It was kind of like the Triumphi. I didn't have like an adverse reaction to it like I did to the Triumphi. Like that was a whole mood, y'all. It was a whole thing. I just kind of like, I didn't get it the first time. It just kind of like missed the mark for me. And I think it's because I was in the midst of drawing my own alien deck at the time that this thing arrived. And it was such a departure from that I wasn't like, I was looking at it through the lens of my deck rather than looking at it through the lens of the deck itself, like it's being its own unique creation. And I think I really did it a disservice doing that. But I kept it. And then I mentioned it being like a deck I don't use, but I keep anyway because like it is super charming and I really enjoy it. And then somebody mentioned in a video somewhere that it's like it reminds them of Marvin the Martian, and that was the thing. That was a thing that clicked in my brain that I was like, it's Marvin the Martian. Absolutely. Now I can get on board with it. I can love it and I can work with it. And ever since then, when I stopped trying to look at it as like an alien deck, because like it says it's the Cosmo Beings, but it's like little alien monsters, really, right? And there's a lot of eyeballs in the backgrounds, which sometimes I don't really like get the association there. But overall, like now that I've started working with it as if it's like Marvin the Martian, that just totally works for me. The deck took on a whole different sort of personality, and I feel like it's the personality that the deck was meant to have rather than the one I was trying to force it into. So when I stopped trying to make it be what I wanted it to be and then just started working with it in the way that it was, and I used that sort of Marvin the Martian connection, because like, dude, I loved Marvin the Martian. When I used that as a sort of stepping off point, as a bridge into this deck, like it really helped click for me. But again, similar to Triumphi, like it was a time and a place, right? I had to kind of wait it out till I was ready to work with this deck, till I was ready to meet it where it was rather than trying to force it to be what I wanted it to be in the moment. And that's been a kind of amazing experience, and I've really enjoyed working with it. It's one that I got into quite a bit at the beginning of the month. And again, then the tabletop arrived and like everything was done. But I had a really fantastic time getting to know it. I did some really wonderful work with it, some really great readings. And it's definitely one that's now like worked its way up there into, decks that I definitely want to hang on to, that I definitely want to work with more. And it's like a mood, it's a thing, and I really, really enjoy it. But again, it took me kind of finding my way with it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really not keen to like declutter a bunch of decks anymore, because like sometimes this is what happens and I'm like, it's just a time and a place thing. There's a reason I bought it, right? There was a reason, a pull, there was something that made me click the buy button, and I just had to like give it time for that to like come to fruition. Not to say that I don't ever like have deck regrets, because clearly I do. I've rehomed a lot of decks, but I have repurchased a lot of decks that I've rehomed, so I'm not as quick to do that anymore. Things sit in purgatory for a really long time, and sometimes it's not so much as sits in purgatory, it just gets put on the shelf until I feel like it's the time and the place for it. And that was totally the case with the Cosmo Beings. I just had to wait for the right time and place until I was ready to meet it where it was, rather than trying to force it into being something that I thought it should be. And that was a really interesting and very eye-opening experience for me. So the last deck that I want to talk about before we go into taking a quick peek at my tarot journal is the Astral Mermaid Tarot. I know I showed this with my members. I show every new deck I get. I do a video with my members called Coffee and Cards where we take a look at all the new decks that I got. I know a lot of people do that publicly, but I do it with my members. And so this was a deck that I got in. I saw it on Lisa's channel, I think, and I was just like, it's like cyberpunk mermaids. I just had to have it. And I have done quite a bit of work with it. Again, really, really heavily at the beginning of the month. And really, actually, I have gotten into this one since I got the tabletop tarot. So there's just something about it that just like, it just so makes my nerd heart happy. It feels very cyberpunk. I know you probably wouldn't think it like looking at me or whatever, but I actually really love cyberpunk. It's like, it's up there. Like if I had to rate like things, it's like, you know, fantasy and then cyberpunk and then like steampunk. So that's like where it sits in my list of like, I don't know, genres, aesthetics. What is that even? And so, yeah, it's that like it's way up there. And even though I don't have, because I haven't seen a lot of cyberpunk decks, I have a few of them now. I've been working on collecting them. But to me, this is Cyberpunk Mermaid, and I absolutely adore it. It's like super spacey, but like also watery. And they're like, I don't know, they're like alien mermaids. And I love everything about this deck. I've done a lot of work with it. I've done a lot of readings with it. I've paired it with a few things here and there. It pairs pretty well. Let me grab, just while we're here, let me grab a couple, the main pairing that I did with it. Okay, I really have got to organize my office or reorganize my office because it took me far too long to find this deck than it should have. So this is the Healing Spirits Oracle. It is the main oracle that I've been pairing with this deck, although I have been using the tarot just on its own as well because it's a gorgeous reader and I love it. But it does pair really beautifully with the Healing Spirits. And again, the messages are fantastic. So we have Life Lesson again. This is the extra card with the Astral Mermaid and the Six of Earth. It's beautiful. I really, really love working with these together too. There's just something about the art that's just so cohesive. The color palettes are cohesive. They feel like they exist in the same world too, which is amazing because the Astral Mermaid is like spacey. It's water, but it's like spacey, and everything in the Healing Spirits is very spacey too. And I feel like they really work really well together. I mean, look at this. The colors are so compatible. Like, oh, such a beautiful, beautiful pairing. So we have one spirit guide, one way between the Lovers and the Eight of Water. Gorgeous, gorgeous. I have had a lot of fun working with this deck, but I've also gotten some really wonderful messages. What I've been doing when I use these, I actually haven't been using this as a focal point so much as I've been doing like a few card readings with the Astral Mermaid Tarot, and then I pull one of the Healing Spirits at the end for like a wrap-up message. But it works beautifully this way too. I love this Demon card too. It's amazing. I like, again, so many beautiful decks. But I really, really enjoyed the way that these worked together. Like, look at this cyberpunky thing. Like, I just love it. I love it. Anyway, yeah, they're beautiful together. They work really well. Go within with the Poet of Earth and the Queen of Water. The artwork's really cohesive and the messages are just really spot on. But like, I'm totally enamored with the Astral Mermaid Tarot, and I didn't like, it's like spacey, sure, but it's mermaids, and I'm not like super into mermaids. I only have one mermaid deck. And like, it's my favorite and I love it, but I'm not really like a mermaid person. So I wasn't really sure about this deck, but it's like alien mermaids. I love it. It's amazing. Okay, let's leave it right here. So you have the power to make yourself better between the Three of Fire and the Empress. And are those not just stunning together? Oh my goodness. Love it so much. Okay, so we're gonna back things way out so we can take a little peek at my tarot journal. This is like, it's almost the end of the year. I'm really, really excited to finish this one up because this will be like, I think one of the few tarot journals that I've done in the last few years that I've actually stayed in one journal and not jumped around all over the place, because I jump around a lot. But it's actually really exciting to have one that is just like all in one place. It's pretty cool. So as I mentioned, our theme was shenanigans for November, which was just all about having fun with our cards. So our first week was the lollygag week, and I wrote a little like my own little definition of what that means. And then for our reading, we had, as I mentioned, we had limericks rather than spread positions, and each line of the limerick was actually the spread position. So that was so much fun to not only write, but to actually do. I hope all the other weavers enjoyed it as well. So for lollygag was take your sweet ass time. And the limerick, and I'll just read them to you so that you can kind of get a feel for what we were doing. So for a dose of lollygagging, it was sometimes I find myself mucking about, but too much of this and I'll burn right out. So I make some space for dilly-dally and do this instead because it's up my alley. And here was my card pull, and I pulled my cards every week, every day of the week for my daily cards. There was also a reflection on Fridays, but I didn't end up doing those just because my month was so dang busy. So here we had our skedaddle week. Again, I was working with the Housewives Tarot. So for our dose of skedaddling, we had this old thing might hold me back. I send it packing and get on track. And this is what is here to stay, but this is still heading my way. These were so much fun to write. Did I say what skedaddling was? Oh, skedaddle was hit the road. That was the definition. So for cattywampus, it was just a tad off kilter. I used, again, the Triumphi Illustrated and the Earthbound for my daily polls. So for our dose of cattywampus, it was, when I look at this in a different way, there is something new to say. It's not the same as it was before, rather a new perspective that I could explore. So that was fun. Then we had our abracadabra week, which was a bit of hocus pocus. And I was again using the tabletop for that along with the coastal curiosities. And so for our abracadabra, the spread was, there's magic in this mundane, intentions in what I help sustain. Here I embrace my mystical being and honor my practice with clear seeing. And then our final week, which was the hodgepodge week, which was a mishmash mess. That was a mouthful. And I used, again, the Pulp Tarot with the Begin Oracle. And so for our final reading, which was a dose of hodgepodge, it was, there is beauty in this here mess. And for this, I will not stress. I will focus on tending my needs. These messages I plan to heed. It's a little Dr. Seussy, right? That was kind of the vibe, Dr. Seuss. And so moving into December, we have our monthly medicine is endings and beginnings, because this is kind of a significant one because it actually brings the end to the 2-year monthly medicine practice that we've been doing, or maybe it just puts it on pause for a little bit because in 2024, we're going to be doing a narrative journey throughout the whole entire year. And it's got an element of gameplay. It's got an element of stuff that we were doing in the monthly medicine. I'll definitely be sharing more about that soon. I've already started to, kind of let members know what's going to be going on there so they know what to look forward to and what we're going to be working with and having some fun with. And can we play this game? Let's play this game while I chat. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to have to do some additional videos kind of sharing about it because we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be incorporating some different elements into practice. It's going to be so much fun. But December will be the last monthly medicine for this little 2-year time period that we've been doing it. I can't believe it's been 2 years that we've been doing that practice together. It's been really amazing. It's been such a great experience. The new practice that we're going to be doing in 2024 isn't completely stepping outside of that realm. There's a lot of crossover there. So again, if you're in the membership or if you're thinking about joining the membership, right now is a great time because we are just getting ready to get into all the information that we're going to need for the 2024 practice. If you like games, if you like playing with dice, if you like working with tarot, you might be into it. It might be fun. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that for January, but I'm excited for December because it's really going to be a sort of wrap up month as we sort of move from one practice to another. And I'm really excited to spend that time, sort of honoring the work that we've done so far before we move into this exciting new journey that I am just I'm beside myself, cannot wait for January to get here so we can get started. It's going to be so much fun. So I think that's it for me today. That was, not too terribly bad. I had a really, such a busy month getting ready for things, doing some traveling. December is going to be even crazier, but it's going to be fantastic for getting everything ready for the next year for my membership. There's going to be some changes coming there. There's going to be some new tiers, things like that. So I'll definitely keep you all posted through, community posts and the social medias and all that kind of good stuff. As always, you'll find links for everything I've shown here in the description box of this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope that you had a wonderful November, and I wish you many, many blessings moving into December.